Hey everybody, Tom Ross here. Got a deck tech of what we're calling Naya Gatewatch. It is a deck full of the new oaths out of Oath of Gatewatch and alongside a bunch of planeswalkers. I guess it could be super friends or whatever. But let's
Well,
get
I feel like we just have to call it Oath of the Gatewatch, right? Or the Gatewatch or whatever, right? Because this is the heart of the set. You know, we have all the oaths. They're all promising to save Zendikar, right?
Mhm.
Fight against the Eldrazi. I don't know. It's flavorful.
could be a good battle between these guys and the Eldrazi.
Yeah.
All right, let's get right into it. Start with the creatures. I'm using a lot of the same creatures from say an Abzan shell or previous versions of just green-white based decks.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the 4 or in the first trees. A good early drop goes with the Oath and Nisses as something to do on the first turn. 3/3s are nice, and this is something to like smooth the mana out. Hangback Walkers are coming in as both a 2-drop and as a to go with the token theme. Have a lot of small creatures, a lot of tokens to be made. In fact, there are 8 different tokens that this deck can make,
Not including emblems.
alongside 2 emblems. So it might be cluttered. We'll see. Well, we have them all ready to go. But yeah, the Thopters work well with the Gideon emblems and the Thorn emblems. So we'll see. This is a good roadblock too. Just one Nissa to go with the 4 Force. The deck already runs 3 of the new Nissa, the actual Planeswalker, Voice of Zendikar. There is a little bit of conflict of them, the flipness of flipping, and have to figure out which Planeswalker you want to keep. But the first of is not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, you will always be able to play around your own cards, right? Like you can play Nissa Vassals here just to get a land, right? And it's not actually going to do anything until you try to flip it. And if your Nissa Voice of Zendikar is around for enough time, like it's just going to be winning the game anyway with its minus to put a bunch of counters on your guys.
Yeah, either way they have to deal with the card in play, so I'm not too concerned. They both have minus abilities too, so I can get rid of one if I need. Got some Wingmate Rocks, more creatures that make more creatures. Goes with token theme, good life gain, just good card. We got 4 different kind of planeswalkers here. Gideon and Sorin. Go with the Anthem effects. They're supposed to good cards in general, but they make creatures, they pump creatures. They work really well with what we'll get to Oath of Gideon in a bit, and the fact that they come with an extra loyalty counter when they interplay, so you can minus Gideon the turn it comes in play and keep it around. Or you could play Sorin, tick it up, and it's already at 6. So next turn after that, you can emblem that and put them under the Abyss.
Yeah, I mean, just the ability that Oath of Gideon actually just makes 2/1/1 tokens is actually pretty good already, right? Like, the going rate for 3 mana is usually, I guess, 3 tokens. I guess Hordling Outburst is the bar, but Hordling Outburst is usually an outstanding card in a deck that can really put the tokens to good use. And making 2 tokens is a little bit worse, but the upside of being able to like play a Gideon, minus it, still keep the Gideon around that turn, I think is huge.
Yep. So all the Planeswalker protects themselves. They either make creatures or kind of enhance my board. Nissa seems pretty good. It's not as powerful as the other 2, but it is a mana cheaper. The green plant tokens, they can get much bigger than just 0/1s in the deck, but it's just mostly a roadblock to keep your other Planeswalkers alive, to stop them from attacking you on the ground. The -2 will distribute a bunch of counters depending on how many creatures I have in play. I don't think I'll ever get to the -7, but maybe.
Yeah, you never know.
New Chandra seems sweet. It's pretty expensive, but all her abilities are powerful. The first ability puts 2 creatures into play, which seems great. Maybe you could play it, maybe if you're on an empty board, then like next turn, Wingwet Rock 'em or something. The 0 ability is just card advantage. Starts with 4 loyalty, which is decent. It goes up to 5 immediately if you're attacking with the 3/1s, which is a pretty good sweet spot. And the -X, the sweep the board. This deck doesn't really have much room for removal. It's just the Chandras and the Murder's Cut. So and I guess the Oath of Chandra too. So it's pretty light on that. The goal of the deck is to mostly have a bigger board than them and kind of ignore their creatures.
One thing I do like about the Chandra is you can actually control the amount of damage you deal to all the creatures in play. So while it's technically a type of sweeper, I could see definitely being at the point where you could like minus a Gideon or a Nissa, and then you can also minus the Chandra and do it for like 1 less than what would kill most of your board, and usually still be able to sweep your opponent's board.
Yeah, very similar to Wildfire in that you can just play it for 6 and -4 if needed, but it's just so much more than that. You can pick and choose how much you're trying to control the board.
The +1 I think is really important for helping some decks that can't normally do so. attack planeswalkers. Like being able to, clear out some of your opponent's creatures and then play Chandra, tick up, and attack and kill an opposing Gideon, I think is really cool. I would look for Chandra to be way more of a card in control decks than decks like this, since the tokens don't actually stick around, and you might not necessarily be able to utilize all the extra card advantage you get from like the 0, as well as, the -X being a little worse because of all the tokens you yourself have. But in general, I think the card is just insanely powerful. For 6 mana, it's just a great card.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to play with it. I guess we'll get to the Oath here, which is the namesake of the deck. They are legendary enchantments, but thankfully they all have come into play effects, so if you draw a second copy of it, you can cast it and get some value out of it. Oath of Gideon is the one I want to try the most, I believe. Makes the two creatures. You already have a token theme, but the real thing that I'm interested in is how big the extra loyalty counters on all the planeswalkers are going to be.
Yeah, me too.
Oath of Chandra is probably the weakest one. It just comes with a volcanic hammer that hits creatures, and I'm not sure that this deck can really use the 2 damage whenever a planeswalker comes in the battlefield. It is nice that it reads whenever like a planeswalker comes into play at the beginning of each end step, which means with the flip planeswalkers they actually exile and come back into play, so that will trigger the Oath of Chandra.
Yeah, I mean, I could see definitely being able to utilize those with the flip planeswalkers from Magic Origins, but I do agree that it is likely the weakest of the bunch in this version. But in general, just like 2 mana deal 3 to a creature isn't that bad. So
that's worth trying out. Oath of Nissa has been a card that's been getting a lot of buzz. They call it the Green Ponder. I think it will smooth the deck out a decent amount. Like you can keep hands with like maybe just 2 lands and Oath of Nissa hits a 3rd land, or draw it late game and find your choice of creatures or planeswalkers as needed. I do like the fact that the second ability lets you cast planeswalkers with mana of any color, like even colorless mana. So having this will enable like some leniency on the mana base. You see we have double white, black white, and double red for planeswalkers, so that can be tough. Just one Secure the Waste to go with the token theme. I think it's worth just having 1 copy. That's a kind of a fireball in conjunction with either, any of the planeswalkers really. Even just a minus on a Nissa would be huge.
Yeah.
But of course emblems.
Yeah, so many Anthem type effects from all your planeswalkers except for Chandra.
And just 1 Murder's Cut. The deck was low on removal spells and didn't have any double spells before, even though it has 11 fetch lands. It's a little tough to cast. There are only 10 actual 10 black sources. I'm counting Oath of Nissa as a source to cast Sorin Solemn Visitor, so that's not that tough. But yeah, it runs 11 fetch lands to try to piece together with the battle lands here. We're trying out Needle Spires as another creature land. I think it's going to be pretty good. Maybe it's not that great in this deck, but 2/1 first strike that can get bigger with all the Anthem effects seems a pretty good use in this version right here. Want to try Shambling Vent. Also, Lifelink is pretty good when you can pump its power up. And then a few basic lands.
Yeah, I mean, the 4 forest feels like a little off to me. I think if we had like a couple of matches played with the deck, we'd probably get into the point where maybe we only need like 3 forests or maybe even 2. It is important to make sure you have enough forest in your deck, both for the fetch land since we're heavy on the green, as well as the Nissa Vastwood Seer. There could be a version in this deck that wants to play like a second Nissa, and then you just have to fluctuate the mana base based on the spells you actually play. But we are pretty heavy green base. We do want to cast Warden on 1 most of the time, and Oath of Nissa on 1 is also pretty important, I think. So,
yeah, seems decent as the first run. But yep, that's it for the main deck. Let's look at the sideboard. All right, we're back for the sideboard of the Naya Gatewatch deck. Honestly, it's not much has changed. I'm using a lot of the same sideboard cards that were, in standard before. But yeah, it's just basically this and that and the other. Some removal spells, Arc Lightning to clean up other token decks, Roast against the little Siege Rhino and other big ground creature decks, Raining Volley against, Jace and Ojutai. Dragon Lord Ojutai, that is. Valor Stance, hit some Anafenza, some other Rhino. So it's kind of just a smattering of removal spells.
Yeah, I do like to point out every now and then that when a set comes out that just has a cycle of hate cards, normally I like to just play like 4 of that just to see how good it is, in a certain matchup, or if it actually is worth the hype. Like when Self-Inflicted Wound came out, for example, like it was really good against all the Abstain aggro decks, so a lot of our decks in the early versus videos had just like 4 of them. We don't really have that here. So what we have is just like a little more of an evened out sideboard, like you would probably see in at the Open Series or something like that. That just has like some 2-ofs, a couple 1-ofs, and it's all just kind of a guessing game. But after sideboard, we're gonna want to play like games that can go a little longer usually. Most decks are going to have access to more removal, a little more pinpoint disruption. That's why something like Dim Protector is really good. Like it doesn't really fit into the theme of our deck, right? Because, you have so many Planeswalkers, not a lot of removal spell, not a lot of things that naturally hit the graveyard. But if you get duressed a bunch, or if your creatures die a bunch, something like Dim Protector, Evolutionary Leap, these cards are just going to be really good for games that take a long time, especially Outpost Siege too.
Yeah, the removal spells aren't too exciting. You're going to bring them in, pick and choose. The Irrational Cleric, just against the red matchup. Pia is, a card that is a lot like a Planeswalker, but doesn't get duress. And it does add to the fact that, the games are going to go longer. So the games that do go long, these are the cards I'm excited about.
Yep.
The Dim Protector, bring back whatever. Evolutionary Leap seems particularly good in here, especially with Hanging Back Walker. You sacrifice a plant token. I don't know how good it'll be because you do find a creature, and there aren't like super good actual creatures in the deck, but it is a very powerful card.
You could board in such a way that Wingmate Rock is your only actual creature, and then you could just sacrifice various tokens. That would be interesting. But Evolutionary Leap is a card that I don't think ever really got fully explored. It's been out for 6-7 months now, and it saw a little bit of play. When Battle for Zendikar first came out in the green-white Hangerback Walker, Den Protector,
the
Megamorph decks, yeah. But slowly over time, like those decks kind of phased out, and so we really haven't seen much of Evolutionary Leap. But in a token theme-based deck like this, you're just going to be able to find, like you could build it so that you only find one creature, and that would be kind of cool, like combo-esque. But I mean, your combo is Wingmate Rocks, so
yeah. I'm kind of hesitant about the Warden of the First Trees in the deck. They may not be necessary. Hitting them off Evolutionary Leap isn't great. But with more work on the deck, I'll see if they actually have a room or a home, I guess, in the deck. But yeah, Outpost Siege, the final card. It's nice that most of the deck is proactive. It doesn't have any, counter spells or instants that need to be played on opposing turns. Everything it can hit will probably just play in your main phase and it'll be good. But yeah, that with the go long theme.
All right.
So that's it for the sideboard. Let's get some games going.
I'm ready to battle.